She filed the paperwork on a Monday in late July, checking a box on a Los Angeles County form that most people never have to think about. We are dating, or used to date. The man she named is a music industry executive who, according to a court in that same county, has already proven in a court of law that she stalked him, defamed him, and tried to extort him. Now, Azealia Banks says he spent over a decade psychologically and emotionally abusing her, and his lawyer has one word for that claim: desperate. This is where the Azealia Banks and Jeff Kwatinetz saga stands as of late July 2026. And to understand why both sides are using the language they're using, you have to go back through 6 years of overlapping lawsuits, a default judgment, a damages trial, and a business relationship that soured almost as fast as it began. Banks filed her request for a domestic violence restraining order on July 27th, according to documents obtained by TMZ. In the filing, she alleges that Kwatinetz's abuse began in 2014, the same year he signed her to his management company and record label, Prospect Park. She claims the pattern started with something specific and, if true, deeply troubling. She says Kwatinetz got her to sign a life insurance policy while she was intoxicated, plying her with expensive red wine before putting the paperwork in front of her. Her declaration states the policy was never reviewed by an attorney, and she says she isn't even certain her own lawyer knew it existed. To this day, she claims, Kwatinetz won't tell her whether the policy is still active or who stands to benefit from it if something happens to her. That detail alone would be enough to raise eyebrows, but the filing goes further. Banks describes what she calls an intimate and very close relationship with Kwatinetz, alleging that he blurred the line between managing her career and controlling her personal life. She accuses him of hiring a private security firm to locate and profile her, claiming that operatives were mapping her home from the air. She says she'd return home to find windows wide open that she hadn't left that way. That unmarked cars would show up near wherever she was living, even as she moved between states. In one particularly pointed allegation, she claims Kwatinetz falsely accused her of trying to rob his own house. The most recent incident cited in the filing is from this past November. Banks alleges Kwatinetz engaged in coercive control, financial exploitation, blackmail, and conduct that disturbed her peace, all despite the fact that, by her own account, the two haven't spoken directly in roughly 10 years. He pressured her to extend her recording contract and produce more music purely to benefit his own finances, and she alleges he told a court she had refused to sit for a deposition, a claim she says is false. Banks isn't asking only for herself. The restraining order request seeks stay away and no contact protection for her mother, her sister, and her niece and nephew, on the theory that Kwatinetz might try to reach her through her family. She's also asking the court to force him to disclose and cancel the life insurance policy from 2014, to bar him from hiring anyone to monitor her, and to let her appear remotely for any related court hearings rather than in person. Notably, her filing does not allege physical abuse. The claim, as written, is specifically about psychological and emotional harm. Kwatinetz's side wasted little time responding. His attorney, Michael E. Weinstein, told TMZ that the filing is just the latest desperate act from someone who has already been found liable in a court of law for defaming my client over many years, threatening this family, interfering with his business, and other outrageous conduct. Weinstein pointed out that Kwatinetz's own lawsuit against Banks is still active, and that the two sides had just wrapped a trial on the question of damages, where his team presented evidence of what he described as harm caused by Miss Banks and her antics. He said they expect a ruling in the coming months, and framed Banks's restraining order request as an attempt to relitigate grievances she already had the chance to raise in the underlying case. According to Weinstein, those claims were dismissed with prejudice, meaning she can't bring them again in that lawsuit. To understand why Kwatinetz's lawyer is speaking with that level of confidence, you need the backstory, and it's a long one. Kwatinetz brought Banks onto Prospect Park in 2014 and released her long-delayed debut album, Broke with Expensive Taste, that November. The record debuted at number 30 on the Billboard 200 without a traditional promotional rollout and earned strong reviews, spinning off singles like Chasing Time and Ice Princess. But the partnership didn't last. Within a year, Banks announced on social media that she was leaving Prospect Park's management wing, tweeting that she was a free agent, though the company clarified she remained under contract to the label itself. A Prospect Park spokesperson told Billboard at the time that the company had chosen to end the management relationship while keeping her on the imprint, calling her one of the most talented artists in the world. Public split didn't end the relationship, it just changed its shape. Years later, Kwatinetz would say he eventually dropped her as a client entirely, citing what he called erratic behavior and her refusal to do basic promotion for the album. By his account, things escalated dramatically in 2020, when he says Banks began accusing him online of withholding her royalties. According to his lawsuit, those accusations turned into something far more serious. He claims she posted videos, social media messages threatening his life and the lives of his wife and young children, and that she posted a photo of herself outside his Los Angeles home shortly before someone attempted to burglarize the property. His complaint cites a tweet reading, "At Jeff Kwatinetz, give Azealia her royalties before we leak your address," and alleges she posted on Instagram claiming he had Breaky, actress Brittany Murphy, killed. Kwatinetz's complaint called this a coordinated campaign of extortion, and on September 24, 2020, he sued her for defamation, stalking, invasion of privacy, and civil extortion. That first lawsuit didn't go to trial. Kwatinetz moved to dismiss it in early 2021, later saying the dismissal came amid extensive settlement negotiations between the two sides. Whatever those negotiations produced, it wasn't lasting peace. On September 20, 2021, Kwatinetz filed a second, nearly identical complaint, again alleging stalking, defamation, trade libel, and civil extortion. Banks fired back with a cross-complaint of her own, filed in Los Angeles County Superior Court, accusing Kwatinetz of fraud and breach of contract. Her filing painted a very different picture of the 2014 deal-making process, alleging that Kwatinetz, then 49 and single, played the role of a romantic suitor specifically to manipulate her into signing away her rights. She claimed he gave her a 15-year license to an album she already owned outright, one that had been produced and financed by a different label entirely. Her paperwork alleged that Prospect Park reported a profit on Broke with Expensive Taste of $1,490,460 against expenses of $1,296,330. And that she didn't receive a royalty check until 2020, 6 years after the album came out, and that the check totaled just $15,344.94. Her complaint called the alleged expenses outrageous given those numbers. That Kwatinetz told her losing her as a client happened because she misread a comment about her upcoming television appearances as a remark about her weight. Banks's team additionally raised a claim involving alleged racist conduct, though that particular allegation was later struck from the lawsuit by the court. None of Banks's counterclaims survived. In September 2023, Los Angeles County Judge Brock T. Hammond found Banks in default, ruling that she had engaged in willful evasion of a follow-up deposition and willful disobedience of a court order. That default judgment handed Kwatinetz a win on his claims, wiped out Banks' cross-complaint entirely. In a subsequent order issued this past January 13th, the court formally set a bench trial to determine damages, with Banks' liability for stalking, defamation, and civil extortion already established as a matter of law. The only remaining question was how much she would owe. That damages trial was scheduled for May 5th. In the run-up to it, Banks skipped a final status hearing, and Judge Hammond made clear the trial would proceed with or without her. Kwatinetz's attorneys told the court that he and his wife, model and actress Natalie Lauren Kwatinetz, intended to testify in person. In a trial brief filed ahead of the proceeding, Kwatinetz's legal team argued that Banks has generated more publicity for her online feuds and reckless antics than for her music over the past 2 decades, and cited a pattern of controversy that included being banned from airlines, suspended from X, and removed from multiple music festivals over remarks his lawyers characterized as homophobic and racist. That history isn't new to anyone who has followed Banks's career. She has been at the center of public disputes with figures ranging from Zayn Malik, whose Twitter feud with her in 2016 led to her account being suspended after she directed ethnic slurs at him, to Russell Crowe, who she accused of assaulting her at a hotel party that same year, an incident that led to competing battery reports rather than criminal charges against either party. More recently, she's drawn attention for public comments about other artists' bodies and appearances, and for a cease and desist she sent to musician Matty Healy over comments he made about her. The May trial reportedly wrapped up as a single-day proceeding, consistent with what the court had anticipated. As of the restraining order filing in late July, no final damages figure has been publicly disclosed. Weinstein's statement to TMZ indicates a ruling is expected in the coming months, which means financial exposure Banks is facing from the underlying lawsuit remains an open question, even as this new filing adds a second front to the legal fight. What makes the restraining order request notable isn't just its fraction content, it's its timing. It arrives in the same window as a damages ruling that could formally quantify what Banks owes Kwatinetz for conduct a court has already deemed defamatory and extortionate. Whether that timing is coincidental or strategic is something only Banks and her legal team can speak to, and as of this reporting, neither she nor a representative for her has issued a public response to Weinstein's desperate act characterization. TMZ noted it reached out to Kwatinetz's camp for comment on the restraining order itself and, separately, has not yet received a statement directly addressing the specific abuse allegations laid out in Banks's declaration, beyond the general pushback from his attorney.